Hello everyone. I'm Shona. I'm from Mindset in Motion, and I just want to talk to you today about mental health awareness. We've got Mental Health Awareness Week coming up between the 13th and the 19th of May this year. And for me, this is a really passionate subject, and I am more than happy to come into your business and talk to you about my own mental health and how I overcame it, and how even if you're watching this and you feel like you're suffering from stress, anxiety, maybe even depression, and that you're currently in a situation where your self-esteem is low, you've hit rock bottom, and you can't see any way back up. Let me just assure you that even when you feel like that, even when you're at your darkest, there is a way back up. 6 years ago, I was in a really bad place. I was working ridiculous hours in the corporate world. I would work through my lunch break. I wouldn't leave the office much before 11 o'clock at night. This was at a time when my daughter was very young. I was only supposed to be working 28 hours a week, but I didn't have a very good boss, and he made me feel like I was a failure. The more hours you put in, the more you work through those lunch breaks, the more you don't give yourself a break, your performance does struggle, and you do start making mistakes. Somebody watching this may relate to this, where you can be reading a document and hours into your day without a break, several coffees in, even just to keep yourself awake. You maybe haven't slept much the night before because your brain is awake by worrying about the next day and what tasks you have. You're reading this document and you're reading the same line over and over and over and over again, and you're not taking anything in. And eventually I was put onto a performance improvement plan, and I just couldn't do this anymore. And I started having panic attacks. First of all, I thought I was having a heart attack, only to find out that actually, no, this was a panic attack, but they are very, very scary. And it got to a point where they were daily. I couldn't even go out in public. I started losing friends because I would stop going out with them. I wasn't a good mum. I wasn't a good partner. And I was just a shell of myself. And eventually I ended up in hospital because my whole of my left side of my body shut down. And although a heart attack and stroke were ruled out, I was eventually diagnosed with fibromyalgia, which is a very debilitating condition. After 14 years in that job, I decided I had to leave. I couldn't work in that environment or with this particular person anymore. And I left a good paid job, took a massive pay cut, got a job more local to home, where the hours were a lot better and the money just didn't matter anymore. It was my sanity. And this is when I discovered mindfulness. It was something I'd read, something I was interested in because I also had a psychology background. And I have to be honest, that was my savior. I'm probably a lot like some of you watching this now. I thought that you had to be religious. It involved a lot of Buddhism techniques, and it's not at all. I'm not saying that you can't do Buddhism if you don't like, if you don't want to, but it's really not about that. So I started practicing this, and this is what I started practicing daily, and I still do. And all I'm saying is you need to put in about 10 minutes of practice a day, and then you can eventually become an expert at it. I was then headhunted for a brilliant job back in the city centre a few years later, and I had to think about whether I wanted to do that. I did, only to find 9 months into that job, I had a horrific accident, which left me with a 20% chance of survival. I had to have major facial reconstructive surgery. Yes, I had a very good surgeon. And, you know, on a plus side, in my mid-40s, I had a free facelift on the NHS, so it's not all bad. But I was very poorly, and it took a long time to recover and quite a number of months off work. I went back to work and soon realized that, again, I wasn't as good as I was before, and I was slower. I had cognitive issues, I had memory problems, and I soon found that stress was creeping back in. And, you know, I soon found myself being questioned by line managers, senior managers as to why I couldn't function as well, why I wasn't good enough. And I found myself having more of my fibromyalgia attacks, more of my panic attacks, and my old mindfulness techniques weren't working as well. So I basically had a choice this time, and I was a lot stronger because of my mindfulness techniques, and I chose to leave and set up my own business. And now I help other people who are going through work-related stress. And I've also realized there's a lot of businesses out there that don't have a policy to train their managers on recognizing members of staff who are struggling with mental health, and how to even train managers on how to recognize it. I can also provide mindfulness workshops. But what I'm prepared to do during Mental Health Awareness Week is come into your business and talk to you about what I went through, how I've managed to control it, and also as well, just try and get people to open up and talk about their mental health. I mean, one question I will ask here is, do you want your stress, your anxiety, or your depression, do you want it to define you, or do you want it to become your hero? Do you want it to actually start making you a better person? For me, my accident was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. At the time, it was dreadful, but now I've made some amazing changes in my life, and I'm a much more positive person, and I help other people. And for me, that's so important. If you think about the figures behind mental health, it costs the UK business between 33 billion and 42 billion pounds each year. Now, if we break it down into, say, Starbucks coffees, that's between about 2,500 and 3,000 Starbucks coffees per employee. Now, maybe that figure will stick in your minds, but that's a huge amount. And just by some small changes, we can actually turn this around. And let's try and erase this stigma on mental health. We're not going to do it overnight, but the whole point of Mental Health Awareness Week is that we try and do something about this, okay? Please feel free to look me up on my website. It's www.mindset-in-motion.co.uk, and I'm Shona Hirons. Thanks for listening. Please feel free to follow me. Bye-bye.